to go straight into the
Please. Yes.
You have in front of you a very short report which details the decisions that were taken by the PCT Cluster Board at its meeting on the 4th of July, which essentially approves the decision to create two vascular specialist centres, two arterial centres for Cheshire and Merseyside, one based at the Royal Liverpool Hospital for the North Mersey footprint, one based at the Countess of Chester Hospital for the South Mersey footprint, and an arrangement whereby patients in the Mersey part of the footprint could be diverted to one or other based on their normal referring preferences, whether they normally go to Western Hospital first or Warrington Hospital first for their initial outpatient consultation. The North Mersey network implementations is already underway, and we started last week. Planning for the South Mersey network is still underway, and that planning continues. I understand there will be a report from the trusts about how far we're along with planning for implementation following the discussion with myself. We're also, obviously, because you will be aware that the Council has written to the Secretary of State to refer the decision. I understand that they have given that clarification on that. The Council may know more about that than I do. And we also expect that the decision is going to be referred by the Warrington Council also, but they have yet to do that. So a very short report, but obviously I can say any questions.
Thank you for that. Just before we do subject the chairperson, I understand the one of people that might want to join us. Would you please? Yeah. Thank you very much. Martin, if you just mind reversing. I'm sure most people just said no, but people sat in the audience, just introduce yourselves and then.
Yes, so I'm David Allison, I'm the Chief Executive of Wirral Hospitals. I'm Stephen Blair, I'm Consultant Vascular Surgeon at Arrowe Park. So I felt it would be beneficial for both myself and Stephen to come in and add a little to Martin's report, really, in that Martin is representing the wider commissioners and their perspective on both North Mersey and South Mersey. But what we've been particularly interested in is the Wirral and the impact on these decisions on patients from the Wirral and also on Wirral hospitals more generally. And certainly one of the things that I was concerned about on arrival is that we did have a disconnect in terms of the approach between management and clinicians, which I think wasn't helpful for anyone. And also that we had lots of fragmented conversations happening across the patch between, certainly within Wirral hospitals, but across Wirral, Chester and Warrington. And therefore, one of the things that I was very keen to do was to establish a network board representing all three hospitals and making sure that we had the right managers and the right clinicians represented. And therefore, we set something up that you can see in the papers called SMART, and I'm sorry for the acronym, but it was about the South Mersey Arterial Network. And it was looking at how the three hospitals work together to make sure that we optimise the outcomes. And I was very keen that the chief execs, the medical directors, the chief operating officers, the vascular clinical leads from each of the hospitals, as well as the intervention of radiology leads for each of the three hospitals, all got together and talked about where are we and balanced what the Vascular Society were looking for, which was centralisation and critical mass leading to better outcomes, but balancing that with the needs of all the other patients and the sustainability of services across the wider hospital portfolio. And we've certainly had many, many meetings over the last few weeks and months in order to try and work that through. And I guess I was a little surprised that what had been agreed on my arrival was very much at a philosophical level. And really what we've been doing is to try and work through, well, what does that actually mean on the ground in terms of resources and the implications on patients. And we've had some very good discussions there, which I feel, recognising where we started from, has got to a good overall compromise where on the one hand, we can feel that the specialist commissioners and the Vascular Society can see that what we're trying to do across Wirral, Warrington and Chester is centralising on those procedures where it has been shown, and Stephen obviously can talk a lot more credibly than I can, where it's been shown that those outcomes lead to better patient outcomes by doing more and centralising, and that's particularly around the aneurysm repairs and the carotid work. But that the vast majority of the vascular work should stay locally, and therefore that would stay at Warrington, Chester and Wirral. And in fact, of course, we believe we have excellent outcomes and we wanted to maintain those local services on the Wirral. So we've got to a compromise where, from a management perspective, I'm very comfortable that we're talking about something less than 100 patients a year having to transfer to Chester in order to have those very complex procedures done, but that then gives patients the benefit of good outcomes there, often done by Wirral surgeons and Wirral interventional radiologists, I have to say, but at Chester. But the rest of our services are protected, and indeed we've been talking about how we can actually do better things moving forward with regards to more day-case surgery and things like that. So, from my point of view, we've managed to try and navigate through by working together a reasonably good compromise that, on the one hand, gives the National Commissioners of the Vascular Society what they're looking for, but it's in our interests as Wirral hospitals and the patients' interests. And I think that's what we've tried to get that balance about. And therefore, you'll see in your papers there's a letter from me saying that I feel we've reached quite a good compromise overall, and that's indeed what we're progressing through, albeit that I recognise that there'll be all sorts of public processes that will have to come into play and will maybe have an impact on us. But I guess at that stage I should stop and hand over to Stephen, who can talk a little bit from the clinical perspective.
Thank you. Yes, I have to say that it's been a breath of fresh air since David has come, and actually people have got together and really started to talk through on a clinical basis of what's best for patients. And therefore there has been a major move. And whereas the original proposals were really almost taking everything over to Chester, that has clearly changed now. And therefore we are going to be able to keep the vast majority of patients on the Wirral. Certainly everybody will come to Arrowe Park to start with have their investigations. If they need surgery, it will be at Arrowe Park. And there are just two conditions that really will be going to Chester. Those are people with aneurysms, and that is very much in line with the Vascular Society desire that there are big numbers going through units that do aortic work, because that does lead to better outcomes. The other operation is carotid surgery, and then in organisational terms we need to have one site that does the emergency out-of-hours work. And I think that this will be best for patients, not necessarily best for me, because I'm going to have to do a lot of travelling around, but therefore there's some disquiet amongst the surgeons themselves from a personal point of view. But I do think that this compromise that David's got together really does give a much better outlook for Wirral patients. And so I'm content with that. I'm sure you've got lots of questions.
Thank you both very much indeed. I don't know whether the committee wants to ask Martin to come forward as well, or whether we have questions, or yes, we do. Please.
This all started, as far as we were concerned, because there was obviously dissension in the ranks, particularly from the surgeon body. I noticed that now the majority of vascular surgeons are supporting the proposal. What's happening to the minority?
There are issues as to how this organisation will finally work out, particularly in terms of the emergency side of things that we've got to work through, because we have got to cover emergencies for 3 sites, and it will probably mean that we have to have 2 surgeons available at a weekend
that in the paper that transporters entered into the picture now, which was totally ignored previously, and that now anybody who wishes may, from Wirral, may go to across the Mersey to Liverpool. I just don't fully understand this. As I understand it, certain problems that people might encounter in your discipline are likely to require immediate attention. I can't see the sense of turning round to somebody who's requiring that immediate attention and saying, do you want to go to Chester or do you want to go to Liverpool? So I think it's just been thrown in there to keep certain people quiet, people like me.
Well, with respect, that was one of the big issues that we had right at the beginning, that the government has taken an attitude of patients have choice where they go. And if everything had been based at Chester, we were quite convinced that a large proportion of Wallasey and Birkenhead patients would not go to Arrowe Park at all, they would just go to the Wirral. And therefore, by having a decent vascular service at Arrowe Park, I think that we will be able to provide good care for patients from Wallasey and Birkenhead, rather than them having to travel all the way to Chester in the first place. But clearly, every patient for every speciality has the right to choose where they go to.
Yeah, could I just add one final point? I'm sure you will, Chair. You know, my immediate reaction was, well, a lot of people from Wirral are going to go to Liverpool, a lot of people from Warrington are going to go elsewhere, and you've got this new team sitting there ready, waiting to deal with things in Chester, and they might not be overworked. Am I being facetious?
I think the agreement that we have reached now actually means that we will be able to get to see people at Arrowe Park every day of the week. So actually, we're no longer talking about everything going to Chester, which is what was the previous plan. And so the desire to go through the tunnel, I think, will be much less now.